For nearly 4,000 years, we believed we knew who the Babylonians were. We were wrong. Ancient DNA is now revealing a truth buried beneath the sands of Mesopotamia, and it changes everything we thought we understood about the birth of civilization. Babylon stands at the center of ancient history. Its name alone evokes the birth of civilization, law written in stone, cities rising from riverbanks, and knowledge that shaped the ancient world. For generations, Babylon has been treated not only as a place, but as an identity. A Middle Eastern civilization created by Middle Eastern people, rooted firmly in the land between the Tigris and Euphrates. That assumption went largely unquestioned. But beneath the ruins, beneath the tablets and temples, a quiet question has lingered for centuries. A question whispered by ancient scribes, debated by historians, and only recently confronted by science. Who were the Babylonians, really? Ancient Mesopotamian texts are unusually honest about instability. They speak of arrivals, of outsiders, of kings who did not belong to the land they ruled. Dynasties rose and fell with unfamiliar names. Entire ruling classes appeared with no clear local ancestry. To later historians, these stories were often dismissed as political rhetoric, symbolic language, or exaggeration meant to justify power. Yet the pattern was difficult to ignore. Again and again, Babylonian records referenced people who came from elsewhere: Amorites from the west, Kassites from the mountains, Elamite influence from the east. The city at the heart of civilization seemed to be in constant contact with worlds beyond itself. The question was never whether Babylon traded with outsiders. That was obvious. The question was whether those outsiders became Babylon itself. For more than a century, scholars argued over this divide. One camp believed Babylon was the natural continuation of earlier Mesopotamian societies, evolving locally from Sumerian and Akkadian foundations. They pointed to continuity in religious practices, administrative systems, and language. To them, Babylonian civilization was rooted in the soil of Mesopotamia, shaped by time rather than migration. The opposing camp saw something different. They pointed to sudden changes in burial customs, shifts in artistic style, and royal dynasties whose origins could not be traced to earlier Mesopotamian families. The Kassites, who ruled Babylon for over 400 years, became the strongest evidence. Their language was unrelated to Akkadian, their homeland was unknown, and yet they ruled the most important city in the ancient world. How could a foreign group dominate Babylon for centuries without leaving clearer traces of invasion or collapse? Traditional methods failed to resolve the debate. Archaeology could show change but not ancestry. Linguistics could track language but not bloodlines. Texts could record events, but they could also lie. For a long time, the mystery remained frozen. Then, in the early 21st century, something changed. Advances in ancient DNA analysis opened the door that had never existed before. For the first time, scientists could look beyond artifacts and inscriptions and examine the people themselves, their bones, their teeth, their genetic signatures preserved for thousands of years. Extracting DNA from Mesopotamia was not easy. Heat, soil chemistry, and time destroyed genetic material quickly. For decades, many believed usable DNA from the region was impossible to recover. But new techniques focused on the densest parts of the human skeleton, especially teeth and the petrous bone of the skull, began to produce results. Researchers analyzed remains from northern and central Mesopotamia associated with Babylonian-era cultures. These genomes were compared to earlier Neolithic farmers from the region, as well as ancient populations from Anatolia, the Zagros Mountains, the Iranian Plateau, and the Caucasus. The goal was not to label the Babylonians as foreign or native, it was to understand ancestry across deep time. The results were not what many expected. There was no single Babylonian genetic profile, no uniform population that could be neatly categorized. Instead, the DNA revealed a complex mosaic. A substantial portion of Babylonian ancestry traced back to earlier Mesopotamian populations, confirming long-term local continuity. But layered on top of that foundation were clear genetic contributions from outside the region, especially from Anatolia and the Zagros Mountains, with additional links to populations further east. This mixture was not sudden. It did not appear at one moment in history. Instead, it accumulated slowly over centuries, possibly millennia. There was no genetic evidence of the massive invasion wiping out the local population, no biological signature of replacement. What the DNA showed was integration, movement without collapse, migration without erasure. Babylon was not built by one people replacing another. It was built by people meeting, mixing, and merging. In a sense, the DNA confirmed what geography had always suggested. Mesopotamia sat at the crossroads of the ancient world. It connected Anatolia, the Levant, Iran, and Central Asia. Trade routes passed through it, ideas flowed through it, and people did too. The irony is that both sides of the old historical debate were partially correct and partially wrong. The Babylonians were not outsiders pretending to be locals, but they were not an isolated, homogeneous population either. They were the biological product of long-term connectivity. This realization forces a rethinking of identity in the ancient world. Modern concepts of ethnicity, nation, and origin do not apply cleanly to early civilizations. Babylonian identity was cultural, political, and religious, not genetic in the way we often imagine today. DNA can tell us where ancestors came from. It cannot tell us how people saw themselves. And that limitation matters. Science cannot tell us who held power, who was considered Babylonian, or how difference was negotiated in daily life. It cannot explain how Kassite kings ruled for centuries, or why some groups assimilated while others remained distinct. Large parts of southern Mesopotamia remain genetically untested due to poor preservation, leaving entire populations invisible to modern analysis. The story is incomplete, but what has been uncovered already challenges a powerful assumption. Not that the Babylonians were not Middle Eastern, but that the Middle East itself was never static. From the very beginning, the region was shaped by movement, by migration, by people crossing mountains, deserts, and rivers long before borders existed. Civilization did not emerge from isolation, it emerged from contact. Babylon rose not despite diversity, but because of it. This is not just a story about the past. It is a reminder that human history is written in layers, not lines, that identities are built over time, shaped by encounters we often forget. If the world's first great civilization was born from mixture, then purity was never the foundation of human achievement. At GenealogyX, this is the deeper story we explore, not just names and dates, but the hidden connections that bind humanity together across time, the secrets buried in bones, the questions history could not answer until now. Because every lineage is a journey, and every civilization, no matter how ancient, carries the echoes of movement, change, and shared origin. The Babylonians were not an exception. They were the beginning.